But first, our special guest for the day, former Minnesota Golden Gopher, great and NFL wideout, host of his very own show, The Ron Johnson Show. You can find every weekday here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Let's bring him in now, Mr. Ron Johnson. Thanks so much for coming on, man. Great to see you again. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Appreciate you guys having me.
Ron, I got to hold myself back jumping straight into NFL draft and Vikings because, I always get so much out of talking football with you. But first, I think we could use another few minutes of venting about this Timberwolves collapse we watched unfold last night. So, Ron, I want to ask you, in a game that was the tale of four quarters, back and forth, up and down, the big runs both these teams had, as a former big-time athlete who's played in so many big-time games like yourself, just how real is momentum swings and shifts during a game when you're a player on the sideline with your teammates? Because I think as fans, we talk about it a lot. We make it seem like such a big factor and outcome in the game. So is it as real as it seems and feels watching on TV when you're the one actually playing in the game and feeling those big shifts? What's the best way you can describe that, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, even in pickup basketball, like I play a ton of pickup basketball, and so like I'm playing today, and this is a thought. When you're on a team of guys you don't know, you create chemistry quick. Some guys you do know, but when you're up, let's say 11-7 or 11-1, 11-2, there's a difference. 11-7, it's closer. You guys are still playing. 11-1, you start goofing off. You start jacking up threes from half court. And then the other team, if they are good enough, they can make a comeback. I've been on the opposite side. I've been down 11-2 in pickup basketball. And the other team, thinks, okay, we're just going to beat these guys. And all of a sudden I knock down 3 threes, game over. And now my team, the next game, the next chumps that step up on the court, when they come out there, we now have a memory of we had one of the biggest comebacks in pickup ball history. And so when the new guys come out, no matter what the score is, we always feel like Ron's going to hit a big shot to win this game. I'm James Harden, step back, crossover. If you go for the step back, I'm going to cross you and lay it. Filet. And so when I think about that, that's what the Grizzlies just did. They created a memory of what it feels like to come back. If you look at down 12-0, timeout. They are not timeout. Sorry, they didn't get their first basket till after, they were down 12-0. But then, early timeout, 47-21, another timeout. At that point, then they had an and one. And then you get Anthony Edwards that jacked up a three that probably shouldn't have shot that three. And then you come down and have another player shoot a three. Like, and I don't understand it at that point. Like, you're up big. So now 47-28, still a decent lead, but now they're cutting to that lead. And now they're like, man, we can do this. 47-28. The Timberwolves hadn't scored 5. They had missed the last 5 shots at that point. Now doubt starts, even though you're up big, unless your coach calls a timeout to say, hey, whoa, what are you guys doing? Like, we're up 19. Calm down. I don't care if you're up 19. If you missed the last 5 shots, call a timeout. You haven't used them. Call a timeout. Get your guys relaxed, calm them down, maybe put your starters back out, but give them a break, breather, get your starters back out, get Pat Bev going again, and start over. Build on that 19-point lead. Don't just sit back and say, let's see what happens. Let's see if they can figure out. You have the 6th youngest team in the NBA. They're not going to figure it out. That's why I was a little bit upset with Barkley calling them dumb kids. And he say, like, there's dumb kids I see at the playground, and it's not just dumb kids. Their parents are dumb too. And he's talking about the coach. Like, he's saying their coach is dumb for not getting these guys ready. And so when I think about games I played, and I never played in big-time basketball games, but I played in some big-time football games. I look at, the Ravens. We played the Tennessee Titans. Nobody thought we could beat them. You look at when we played the Steelers, same thing. Nobody thought we could beat them. You look at when we played the Ohio State Buckeyes, number 6 in the country. Nobody thought we could beat them. We beat Penn State when they were number 2 in the country, arguably number 1, because they had 2 first-round 1 and 2 draft picks back-to-back with LeVar Arrington and Courtney Brown. So they had the best defense in college football with other starting cornerbacks that went to the NFL as well that we had to go up against. And so when you look at the way that team, Anthony Adams, went to the league, Jimmy Kennedy went to the league. That was Penn State's defense that we had to face. Nobody gave us a chance because they were the number 2, number 1. They were 1 and 2 that year in college football. I mean, LeVar Arrington was beating up punters. And I'll never forget, he was, man, every punt block, he was out there for no reason. Like, he was literally like a black dude from the hood skating that doesn't really know how to, like, play hockey, but he just wants to skate because he's like, oh, I can fight and not get in trouble for this. And LeVar was just on punt. He wasn't on punt to block. He was on punt to be a menace and just pick on somebody, and it became the punter that year. It was to the point where punters would punt and then just fall to the ground. Because they're like, LeVar's coming. I know he's going to be a jerk. I know he's going to pick on me. And that was LeVar's thing. He was a bully. And there was nothing wrong with that. And my thing is, like, Debo can be a bully. Who's going to fight Debo unless Craig comes with a brick? Nobody came with the brick until Minnesota showed up. We showed up, and we was Craig with the brick. And Mason was like John Witherspoon in the locker room. He was like, you live to fight another day.
I'm not doing this with you today, Ryan.
But he was like, not with
I'm
the
here
guns.
for it.
Like, you got to use these.
I'm here for it.
And we use these. And that's what happened. The Grizzlies used these, and the Timberwolves was on the court looking for a gun. Like, oh, man, we got to kill Debo. They coming back. I mean, Bane looks like he just does bench press for no reason in the locker room at halftime.
Yeah,
just swore for no reason.
But, so that's my thought, man, with big game. Momentum is huge. Like, we got the momentum early on Penn State. We never really gave it back. They did kind of get it back at one point, and then we threw 2 Hail Marys, like, because it was 2 minutes to go and we threw a Hail Mary. Like, Mason was like, I'm not waiting for 20 seconds. Let's throw the Hail Mary now. I was confused, but we were all like, all right, let's run the Hail Mary from the 20-yard line. Yeah. We ran a Hail Mary. I caught it at the 50. Next play, ran another Hail Mary, tipped it. Arlen Bruce catches it. Our true freshman comes in. And possibly makes the biggest kick in his career. Not possibly. He makes the biggest kick in his career. He, as a freshman, kicks it, beats Penn State. And that's the pictures people see all over the time. Now you see that on Big Ten Network when they're talking about the Penn State-Minnesota rivalry, because Minnesota ended up doing it again with Rashad Bateman and Tyler Johnson. So that was the cool thing. Like, that's where the Grizzlies are, and the Timberwolves have to find a way. But momentum is huge, and I don't know if they can replicate that start. Like, that start was unheard of.
Right.
And so that's why I'm more upset, is that the start was so unheard of, and then you find a way to lose 2 20-point leads. 2. I mean, that's like going to Vegas and you see, like, one of the prettiest, you see Halle Berry.
Right.
And Halle Berry is hanging out with you. She's buying you drinks. She's buying you appetizers. She's telling you, hey, where are you going after this? And then you fall asleep in the club. So Halle leaves. You just blew it with Halle Berry. Like, that's where the Timberwolves were at last night. They had Halle Berry ready to get married. I could hear Jagged Edge in my head. Let's just get married. And then you fall asleep. And Halle, you wake up. It's 4 a.m. Everybody's still in the club, but Halle's gone.
He's like, where'd Halle go?
Out. Right. And that's what happened to the Timberwolves. Like, I think 47 seconds in the third quarter, and they were up 62-83. They had it, and they let it go. With 5 minutes to go in the fourth, it was 86-85. That's just poor clock management. That's poor offensive execution, and that's poor coaching. You got to call a timeout, slow them down, and keep saying, hey, dudes, we're winning. What are you guys doing? Like, I saw at one point, D'Angelo Russell had to get his guys into the huddle to pay attention, because when they were winning, guys were over there jacking around, talking about what they're going to be doing tonight, talking about, I mean, I know Bellanote not there, but Luke probably remember that. But, the old school club Randy Moss used to go to back in 98.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they was acting like, where the party at after this, man? We out here. Like, they talking about Ja Morant's dad over there quiet, karl-anthony Towns. And then the tide turned.
Man, he was talking big cash too. Leaving. He was like, "Hey, we ain't coming back to Minnesota."
Right. If they lose again, it's over in 5. It's over in 5. You're not going there down 3-1, and you're not going to beat Memphis. Now, if they do, you can play this clip back and throw it in my face. But if you go down 3-1, you're not going to beat Memphis at home to close you out, because they know they don't want to go back on the road and then force a game 7, because then that's when that sphincter gets tight again in game 7 at home, because you're playing with house money when you're the 7 seed, so you can be relaxed. The 2 seed now is close to being embarrassed. Same thing. If they went up 2-1 at home and you got another home game, the Grizzlies get tight, because they're like, man, we might lose to the 7 seed, the 7. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I just can't do it.
Man, it was funny because last night going into the newscast, I was listening in my IFB, and Randy has been here for a long time. He's covered sports here for a long time, Randy Shaver.
Yep.
And he was like, he's like, this may be an all-timer. And I'm like, man, for him to say that, like he's been here for so long covering sports here in Minnesota for all these years, and for him to say that may have been an all-timer, like that was really, really bad. So I don't know how they come back from that, but they seem to be optimistic at the press conference. I mean, even Cat's talking about, hey, I'm just going to get a glass of wine and decompress and move on. But it's like, dude, it's on you now. Like, you got to show and prove in these next coming games to really, like, kind of help turn the tide around. But, you know, I digress. We'll move on. We'll talk some actual football with you now, Ron. You know, the Vikings have the 12th pick, and there have been so many ideas about what they do with that 12th pick. Is there a guy that you're like, look, this is who they have, this is who they're going to get, and maybe you think will still fall to them at 12? Who are you holding out hope for that they will get at that 12th spot?
So this is my thing. Derek Stingley Jr. is Derek Stingley Jr. right now, in my opinion, or bust. If he's not there at 12, now we know there's some sneaky picks out there. I don't know if you reach. Like, I don't think you need to reach at 12 unless you're like, look, we're going to go D-line. There's a kid out of Georgia, the big 6'6",
Jordan Davis.
Yep, out of Georgia. He's one you can add. Now you have a run stopper to go along with this. Because in the 3-4,
I like that.
That cock nose in the 3-4 has to be a menace. Like he's going to take on the double team and sometimes the triple team. Like if you have a guy that can take on guard, center, guard at the same time, because he's just that big and that long, that frees up your 5 techniques. That frees up your 3 tech. That frees up Daniil Hunter. That frees up your backer that's going to shoot that A gap. So I could see that being one. I don't think they have them projected that high. But again, if there's a guy you want, I've always heard this from Tony Dungy, don't be afraid to just take him. Like when Quentin Nelson went to the Colts early, the guard, everybody's like, oh, that's way too a 6 pick for a guard. No. And look, he's a Pro
Hall of Famer. Yeah, right. Unbelievable.
He's great. So reaching for a guy is only a reach if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so I look at that pick. So, but Derek Stingley Jr. is not there. You can trade back to the 20 and get maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick because you still have Andrew Booth Jr., who's at 16, possibly 17, 18. You have Trent McDuffie, who's going to be at 22, another 5'11" guy. But the guy I like, too, is Kyer Elam, who you can get possibly in the 2nd round because he's 6'2", 191 pounds, reminds me of a bigger Cam Dantzler, more like an Xavier Rhodes, you know, has the hip movements, has the speed, has the straight line speed. And that's the guy you can get. That's kind of what I see happening. I see those guys being in there. Again, you got Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati. I just like saying his name, but again, he's 6'1".
Kobe's fun. Love Kobe,
6'1".
man.
If you think about the 3-4 defense, you play a lot of 2 shell behind it because you have one of your backers. You have a Mike and you have a Mo. So whoever's the Mike is kind of usually the run stopper guy, or sorry, the drop, and the Mo is usually your banger. And so I'm guessing Jordan Hicks is going to be the Mo. He's going to be the banger, most likely, unless he plays outside. But I think he's going to be your banger. Eric Kendricks, we know, can run sideline to sideline, so he's going to most likely be the guy you drop into space. When that happens, he can eat up that middle of the field, leave your 2 high safeties, and now your corners can kind of play in that dead zone of 4 to 5 yards where they can come up and press and then bail, and then they can come up and press and trail, or they can come up and press and just sit in the flat. And so a guy like that with that size at 6'1", you don't have to make him play man. Cincinnati, Luke Fickell treated Cincinnati like Ohio State. He started recruiting some great guys. And so if you think about Kobe Bryant, he got a lot of work because nobody was throwing at Sauce Gardner. Like Sauce Gardner became the Deion Sanders of the Cincinnati Bearcats. So then what happens? Well, Kobe Bryant gets tested. He gets tested. So he's battle tested. He's had to help out to keep him in that number 4 spot in the country. So I would not shy away from Kobe Bryant because he's had the Ohio State pedigree, coaching mentality on the field and practice, how to practice like a pro. And so I would not be afraid with that one in the later rounds in the 3rd, 4th, or 3rd round. But yeah, that's what I see them going with. And again, we talk about tight end. A guy that I like later rounds is Cole Turner out of Nevada. You know, he's a 6'6", 250-pound guy. He can jump. He's a former basketball player, former receiver, turned tight end, a la Ben Utek, which Ben Utek was very serviceable for the 7-8 years he played. But Cole Turner's a guy that you can flex out at 6'6", and if you get a safety, throw the fade. I did 2 of his games on FS1, and 3 times in a row in the red zone, they just lined him up outside and threw fades to him. I think he ended up catching like 2 or 3 touchdowns that game. And so that's a guy I like late. And 2, I like his quarterback. I say if you are going to go late and you want to get a quarterback to possibly compete and be your backup, I would not shy away from that as well. Like, you look at the quarterbacks out there, and the kid's name is Carson Strong out of Nevada, 6'3". I think he's more than 6'4". I'm 6'3". He was taller than me. 6'4", 226. He's like a Peyton Manning, can't run. He couldn't run. His coach told me this. He could not run out of sight in 2 days. If you gave him a chance, you could still see him.
Great arm, though. Big arm.
Great arm. But he's a guy that he's a smart kid. He's a backup. His coach gave him, I think, 3 plays in his wristband, and said when he got to the line of scrimmage, you figure out which play is best for your team right now. And he's the guy that put Cole Turner out wide through the fades. He's the guy that put Romeo Dubs in the 4x1 set, which you rarely see a 4x1 except for Florida. But put Romeo Dubs in a 4x1 set and ran a inside tunnel screen with, nothing but blockers in front of him. So he's the guy, when I asked the coach, he's the guy that called those plays, not the coaches. So he's another guy that you put a headset on him for a couple years in a clipboard behind Kirk Cousins. He might one day be your starter, and we could be talking, and I'm not going to be preposterous, but we could be talking about a guy, not Tom Brady, not where it's like, oh my God, where did this guy come from? But, a serviceable guy, an Alex Smith, type of kid that can just be serviceable. Carson Wentz that can be a starter eventually.
Man, I'm so glad. Lot to digest there, but I'm so glad you brought up Jordan Davis, because he's a guy that nobody's talking about. Again, like Quentin Nelson, no value at nose tackle. Heck, Vita Vea went 12 overall in the same spot, and look what he did to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense, number 1 in the league the last 2 years for a big reason. And nobody's talking about him though, Ron. So I'm glad you brought him.
He's like 17 to 25. They have him going like 17 to 25. So again, if you drop back, he's a guy you could take and get capital for that second round to go get Kyer Elam. So you get Jordan Davis and you get Kyer Elam. The thing about D-line is, you say there's no value for him. There is with the Vikings, because we know the injuries. We've seen the Juggernaut and before Pierce and all these guys not be able to play. So you got to have bodies. Look at the Patriots, the Packers. They had 2 big bodies in there they can bring in and out. So one guy's getting wear down. Look at Akeem Hicks. He eventually got wore down. He didn't have anybody that could come in, and then all of a sudden now we're talking about, is he going to play this week? I think Jordan Hicks, if you drop back to 20 and he's still there, you take him, because now Kyer Elam is probably still on the board. And Kobe Bryant can come in, I think, and play behind Cam Dantzler. Cam Dantzler, I think, if you teach and love him, he's an okay cover 2 safety.
No doubt.
Zimmer was not a loving guy. He didn't grab his teddy bear of players and say, come here. Let me help you out.
Okay?
Let me help you out. He didn't do this. Mike Zimmer was like, hey, get your bottle, get out of my face. Get out of here. Like, that was Zimmer. Like, he's not breastfeeding. He's a bottle feeder. You got to breastfeed these players. They're young. They need the milk. Breath still smell like Similac. You got to love them. That's where he's at with it.
Hey, this 3-4 is going to be a new look for Vikings fans. But again, you look back at some of the best 3-4s, Patriots, Vince Wilfork right in the middle. Look at what Albert Hainsworth did for a long time up in there. And they just make everybody around them better, like you said, Ron. Then you come back later, Kyer Elam, like you mentioned, Kobe Bryant. We had Jeff Risdon on. He brought up Roger McCreary from Auburn, shorter arms. But the guy's ready to come in and play right away. So, again, Ron, I could talk X's and O's with you all day long, but we won't do that again. Check him out every weekday on the Ron Johnson Show, Monday through Friday, bringing the heat right here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. As always, thanks so much for stopping by, Ron. Hopefully, we'll talk to you again real soon, all right?
Yeah, appreciate it. Check out today's show. We had JT Brown, former Wild and now Seattle Kraken color analyst. So he was good, has some good stuff to say about the Wild and the Kraken.
Love that. Thanks so much, Ron. Take care, all right?
Appreciate
you, Ron.
All right, thank you.
Ron Johnson, Reggie, Ron, bring in the heat per usual. Again, check him out right here 5 days a week on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Reggie, any big takeaways right there from Ron?
All right, so Ron is like me in terms of trying to find the wildest correlations to current events. Like, people watch me on TV and they're like, what is he talking
Where'd
about?
you get that?
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like a mad scientist at my computer when I'm thinking up this stuff. I'm like, just like typing up stuff. And it's so hilarious because like when he made the Halle Berry reference, like that was spot on. Cause
Or
like
the Friday reference.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
off the charts, respect, and also game recognized game. I appreciate that.